The cargo hauler groaned like an old animal that had been asked to climb one mountain too many. Liam slapped the dashboard with mild affection. "Come on," he muttered. "You've survived 3 meteor showers, 2 incompetent mechanics, and 1 exploding coffee machine. Don't fail me because of a little snow." The vehicle responded with a deep mechanical cough before the engine steadied. Outside the windshield, the world had vanished into white chaos. Frostline 7 was not a place sensible people visited willingly. It sat on the outer edge of civilized space, a lonely trade station built on a frozen moon where the wind could slice through thermal armor and the snowstorms occasionally interfered with orbital traffic. Cargo ships came here when they had to, not because they wanted to. Liam had been working here for 6 years. Most people assumed that meant he had terrible life decisions. They weren't entirely wrong. He guided the heavy hauler across the landing field while snow hammered against the reinforced glass. The station lights glowed through the storm like distant stars struggling to stay alive. "Visibility. Terrible," the navigation computer announced calmly. "Thank you," Liam said. "I was worried I might accidentally see something." The AI remained silent. It had learned that arguing with him usually made conversations longer. The cargo container behind him was filled with agricultural processors destined for a colony 2 systems away. The machines were designed to grow vegetables in environments where soil, sunlight, and common sense were all in short supply. Liam personally believed anyone trying to grow tomatoes on an ice moon deserved whatever results they got. Another gust of wind rocked the vehicle. "Relax," he told the hauler. "This is still better weather than last Tuesday." Last Tuesday, a freighter pilot had tried landing sideways. The windshield sensors flickered as something moved ahead in the storm. Liam frowned. At first he thought it was a loose cargo drone, or maybe a maintenance robot blown off course. But the shape moved differently, uneven, slow, struggling against the wind. A person? He eased the vehicle to a stop. "No one should be out here," he said quietly. The storm roared outside like an angry ocean. Frostline 7 had strict regulations about walking the landing fields during weather events, mostly because people tended to freeze into statues before reaching the next building. The figure stumbled again. Liam sighed. "Fantastic," he muttered. "Someone's about to ruin my quiet evening." He opened the door and the cold slammed into him like a physical wall. The wind screamed across the landing field. Snow swirled through the air in bright spirals under the floodlights. The woman stood about 20 meters away, barely visible through the storm. She was wrapped in thin clothing that clearly wasn't designed for Frostline 7. Her posture was rigid, as if she were fighting to remain upright. Liam jogged toward her, boots crunching against frozen ground. "Hey!" he shouted over the wind. "You trying to become an ice sculpture, or is this a hobby?" She turned slowly. For a moment, Liam simply blinked. She looked human at first glance. Pale skin, dark hair whipping in the wind. But something about her face was subtly different, elegant, unusual. Then he noticed the ears. They were long and graceful, extending slightly past her hair, like delicate sculpted leaves. Liam stared for half a second longer than polite society probably allowed. "Well," he said, "either you're from a very interesting culture, or Frostline 7 just got weirder than usual." The woman shivered violently. Up close, it was obvious she was freezing. Her lips trembled and frost clung to the edges of her hair. Liam immediately shrugged off his heavy coat. "This place is trying to kill you," he said, stepping forward. "Here." He draped the coat around her shoulders before she could protest. The thick insulated fabric swallowed her smaller frame. The woman looked stunned. "You gave me your coat," she said softly. "Yeah," Liam replied. "I own 2 shirts underneath. It's basically luxury." The storm howled around them. She pulled the coat tighter, clearly grateful for the warmth. "Thank you," she said. Her voice carried a strange calmness, even through the shivering. Liam scratched the back of his head. "Look, I assume your ship broke or your navigation AI tried to take a vacation or something. Happens all the time out here." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied him with quiet curiosity, as if trying to understand something. "You helped me without asking who I was," she said. Liam shrugged. "If I start interviewing people before helping them, they'll freeze to death halfway through the questions." A faint smile touched her lips. It was small, but it made her expression suddenly warmer. Liam gestured toward the hauler behind him. Come on. My truck has heating that works at least 60% of the time. Those are good odds around here. She hesitated. Then she nodded. As they walked toward the vehicle, Liam glanced sideways at her again. So, he said casually, any chance you can explain why someone with elegant elf ears was wandering across a frozen spaceport during the worst storm this month? The woman looked ahead through the snow. That, she said quietly, is a very long story. Liam chuckled. Great, he replied, because this storm looks like it's going to last all night. The heater inside the cargo hauler worked with the determination of a machine that had long ago accepted its tragic fate. It hummed loudly, wheezed once, and then began pushing warm air into the small cabin with heroic stubbornness. Liam climbed into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut. The wind outside continued screaming across the landing field, but the reinforced metal walls turned the storm into a distant roar. Congratulations, Liam said while rubbing his hands together. You are now inside the most luxurious transportation vehicle Frostline 7 has to offer. The woman sat quietly in the passenger seat, wrapped in his oversized coat. Her long ears brushed softly against the collar as she moved. She looked around the cabin with calm curiosity. The dashboard was cluttered with blinking cargo indicators, a cracked navigation screen, and a coffee container that had clearly survived several accidents. Liam noticed where she was looking. Yes, he said, pointing at the coffee container. That's my emergency survival drink. Is it good? She asked. No, Liam replied immediately, but it is powerful. The woman blinked. It once dissolved a spoon, he added thoughtfully. That's when I knew it had potential. A faint laugh escaped her before she could stop it. The sound seemed almost surprising to her, as if she didn't do it often. Liam glanced sideways. Well, that's good, he said. If you can still laugh, it means Frostline 7 hasn't completely destroyed your spirit yet. Outside, the blizzard slammed against the vehicle again. The storm sensors on the dashboard flickered. Wind speed increasing, the navigation computer announced. Of course it is, Liam muttered. He pushed a few controls and the hauler slowly rolled forward across the frozen landing field. Snow swirled through the headlights like galaxies made of ice. For several moments, the woman simply held the coat tighter around herself, absorbing the warmth. You saved my life, she said quietly. Liam shook his head. Let's not get dramatic, he replied. You were cold. I had a coat. This is what experts call basic problem solving. She studied him carefully. You did not ask for anything in return. Liam frowned slightly as if the idea confused him. What would I ask for? He said. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she turned her gaze toward the windshield where the storm moved like a living wall. Many people offer help for a reason, she said. Well, sure, Liam replied. Sometimes they want money. Sometimes they want favors. Sometimes they want your sandwich. He glanced at her. I assume you don't have a sandwich. I do not. Then we're good. The hauler bounced over a patch of frozen ground. The woman braced herself lightly against the seat. You are not curious who I am? Oh, I'm curious, Liam said. I'm extremely curious. She waited. But curiosity and survival are two different hobbies, he continued. Step 1 was getting you inside before you froze. Step 2 is figuring out the mysterious elf ear situation. Her lips curved again in that small, controlled smile. You noticed. Hard not to, Liam said. Where I come from, ears usually stop growing earlier. The heater rattled louder for a moment. Liam leaned over and smacked the side of it. Behave, he told the machine. The heater coughed and continued working. The woman watched the interaction with open interest. You argue with your machine, she observed. They started it, Liam replied. The navigation computer responded immediately. I did not start anything. Liam sighed. See? Attitude. The woman laughed again, this time more freely. The sound filled the small cabin with surprising warmth. They drove in silence for a while as the hauler crossed the frozen field toward the cargo hangars. Eventually, the woman spoke again. My shuttle was damaged, she said. Meteor storm? Liam guessed. She looked at him, slightly surprised. Yes. Lucky guess, Liam said. Meteor storms, engine failures, drunk pilots. Those are the three traditional ways people end up wandering across my landing field. She nodded slowly. The communications array failed after the crash, so no distress signal. No, Liam whistled quietly. Yeah, that would make the evening complicated. She looked down at the coat wrapped around her shoulders. You helped a stranger in the middle of a storm. Well, Liam said casually, if someone's freezing, you give them your coat. He shrugged. It's not exactly advanced philosophy. The woman turned toward him again. Her eyes studied his face carefully, as if memorizing something. What is your name? She asked. Liam. Liam, she repeated softly. He nodded. And you? For a moment she hesitated. Snow continued rushing past the windshield. Then she said simply, Arya. Liam nodded once. Nice to meet you, Arya. He guided the cargo hauler toward the glowing lights of the main hangar. Behind them, the blizzard continued swallowing the landing field, erasing the path where they had met. Inside the warm cabin, Liam leaned back in his seat. You know, he said casually, this might be the strangest shift I've had all week. Arya tilted her head slightly. All week? Yeah, Liam said. Last week a cargo robot tried to unionize. The cargo hangar doors opened slowly, their massive gears grinding through layers of frost that had accumulated over the last week. The moment the hauler crossed the threshold, the roar of the blizzard faded behind thick reinforced walls. Inside, the station lights glowed warmly across the wide metal floor, where cargo containers were stacked like enormous steel buildings. Liam parked the vehicle beside a maintenance platform and shut the engine down. The sudden quiet felt strange after the screaming wind outside. Well, he said, stretching his arms, welcome to the glamorous heart of Frostline 7. Arya stepped down from the vehicle, still wrapped in his coat. The fabric hung loosely around her shoulders, but the warmth had clearly brought color back to her face. She looked around the hangar slowly. Cargo drones hummed overhead carrying containers across magnetic rails. A massive freighter hovered inside the docking bay, its engines cooling with long metallic sighs. Workers moved across the floor in insulated suits, shouting instructions to one another. It was loud, messy, and completely alive. This place, Arya said quietly. Chaotic? Liam suggested. She tilted her head. Efficient chaos. That's the official slogan, Liam replied. The station manager hates it. One of the cargo drones drifted past them, scanning Liam briefly before continuing its route. Arya watched it with interest. Your machines are very autonomous? Yeah, Liam said, but don't let them fool you. Half of them are emotionally unstable. The navigation computer inside the hauler spoke through the open door. I heard that, Liam pointed at it. See? Arya laughed softly. The sound drew the attention of a nearby mechanic who was tightening a grab clamp on a cargo crate. The mechanic looked at Liam, then at Arya, then back at Liam. He slowly raised one eyebrow. Liam immediately waved a hand. Don't start. The mechanic smirked. Did you find her in the storm? Yes. Are you keeping her? No. Disappointing, the mechanic said before returning to his work. Arya looked amused. Your colleagues are very direct. They've been breathing cargo fumes for years, Liam explained. It changes people. He walked toward a wall console and tapped a few controls. A holographic map of the station appeared above the panel. All right, he said. Let's get you somewhere warm that isn't a cargo truck. Arya stepped closer, studying the projection. The map displayed the layered structure of Frostline 7, docking rings, cargo sectors, habitation corridors, and the administrative tower rising above everything like a frozen needle. You operate a large facility, she observed. Technically, Liam said, I operate a truck. The station operates itself and occasionally threatens to collapse. Arya leaned slightly closer to the projection. Her long ears caught the light of the hologram. You are very calm, she said. About what? Helping a stranger who arrived during a storm. Liam shrugged. Look, Arya, if you live out here long enough, you stop being surprised by strange things. He gestured around the hangar. Last month, a trader tried to pay me in glowworms. She blinked. Glowworms? Bioluminescent space worms. Supposedly valuable. Supposedly? They escaped in my truck. Arya covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. Liam continued walking toward the inner corridor. Anyway, he said, You said your shuttle crashed. Yes. You know roughly where? She nodded slowly. In the outer snowfields beyond the southern docking perimeter. Liam stopped walking. He turned to look at her again. That's about 30 kilometers from here. I walked. He stared. In a blizzard. Yes. Liam ran a hand over his face. Okay, he said finally. You might officially be the toughest traveler I've ever picked up. Arya tilted her head slightly. Is that a compliment? It's either that or you're completely insane. Another cargo drone floated past them, its scanning beam briefly illuminating Arya's face. For a moment the drone paused, processing something. Then it continued on its path. Arya noticed the hesitation. Did the machine just analyze me? Oh yeah, Liam said. Station security systems scan everything. She looked thoughtful. What happens if they find something unusual? Liam smiled. Usually nothing. Usually. Well, he admitted, once they locked a man in a storage closet for 3 hours because the system thought he was a smuggler. Was he? No, Liam said. He was a dentist. Arya frowned slightly. Why was a dentist at a cargo station? See? Liam said. That's exactly what the computer asked. They continued walking through the hangar toward the interior corridor. Beyond the thick doors, the habitation section glowed with warmer light. People passed by carrying equipment, talking over comm devices and dragging cargo sleds. Life on Frostline 7 never really slowed down. Arya paused for a moment before stepping through the corridor entrance. She looked back toward the distant storm outside the hangar doors. For a brief moment, her expression became distant, as if she were listening for something very far away. Liam noticed. You all right? She turned back to him. Yes. He nodded toward the corridor. Good, because the cafeteria is this way. Her expression shifted. The cafeteria? Yeah. He grinned slightly. Step 2 of survival on Frostline 7. And step 1? Don't freeze. Arya followed him into the corridor. Behind them, far above the frozen moon, distant sensors in orbit detected something. Dozens of hyperspace signatures flickered briefly across the edge of the system, then vanished again. But inside the station, Liam was already pushing open the cafeteria doors. Prepare yourself, he said. For what? The soup. The cafeteria of Frostline 7 looked exactly like a place built by engineers who cared deeply about efficiency and absolutely nothing about decoration. Metal tables were bolted to the floor, the lighting was bright enough to interrogate criminals, and a faint smell of reheated protein paste floated through the air like a permanent resident. Liam pushed the door open and stepped inside. A few workers looked up from their meals. One of them lifted a cup in greeting. Evening, Liam. Evening, Ross. Ross glanced at Arya standing beside him, wrapped in the oversized coat. Ross slowly lowered the cup. New cargo? He asked. Traveler, Liam said. Ross nodded slowly in the thoughtful way of someone preparing gossip for later. Right. Liam walked to the food dispenser and tapped the screen. The machine hummed and displayed the daily menu. He read it carefully. All right, he said. Today we have 3 exciting options. Arya stood beside him, observing the strange machine. What are they? Option 1, Liam said, tapping the screen. Vegetable soup. That sounds reasonable. Option 2, he continued. Vegetable soup with slightly more vegetables. And the third? Vegetable soup, but the machine pretends it's something else. Arya stared at him. He shrugged. Frontier dining. She covered her mouth to hide a smile. The dispenser hummed again and produced 2 steaming bowls. Liam picked them up and walked toward a table near the window. Outside, beyond the thick glass, the storm continued to rage across the frozen landing field. They sat across from each other. Arya looked at the bowl carefully. This is soup. Yes. Are you certain? Liam tasted it. I would describe it as soup-shaped. She laughed softly again. It was becoming easier for her. For a few minutes, they ate in comfortable silence. Arya watched the cafeteria around them. Cargo workers argued about engine parts. A maintenance technician loudly complained about a malfunctioning door that apparently hated him personally. It was noisy, ordinary, alive. You enjoy this place, and she said. Liam looked up from his bowl. Enjoy might be a strong word, but you chose to stay. Yeah. He leaned back in his chair slightly. Out here, things are simple. Cargo arrives, cargo leaves, machines break, someone fixes them. Arya studied him quietly. And the people? They complain constantly, Liam said. But if something goes wrong, everyone helps. He gestured toward the room. Out here, nobody survives alone. Arya looked down at the coat around her shoulders again. You helped me without hesitation. Well, you looked like you were about 10 minutes away from becoming a snow statue. She tilted her head slightly. In my world, people rarely act without calculating the advantage. Liam raised an eyebrow. That sounds exhausting. It is. He finished his soup and pushed the empty bowl aside. So, he said, what happens next for you? Arya considered the question carefully. My people will eventually find me. Search teams? Yes. Probably panicking too. Very much, Liam smiled. Good. It's nice to know powerful organizations panic just like the rest of us. At the next table, Ross leaned slightly closer, clearly pretending not to listen. Liam noticed. Ross, he said loudly. Ross jumped. Yes? If you lean any further, you're going to fall off your chair. Ross straightened immediately. I was stretching. Your ears. Arya tried very hard not to laugh. Liam turned back to her. So once your people show up, you'll head back wherever you came from. Yes. And everything goes back to normal. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out the window again. The storm outside was beginning to weaken slightly, though snow still whipped across the landing lights. You do not ask where I come from, she said. Liam shrugged. I figured you'd tell me if it mattered. And if it does? Then I guess I'll find out. Arya studied his face again with that same quiet curiosity. You are unusual. I get that a lot. Just then the station lights flickered briefly. The entire cafeteria paused. The lights stabilized again. Ross groaned. Please tell me the reactor isn't about to explode again. Relax, Liam said. Again? Arya asked. Small incident, Liam replied casually. How small? The explosion was contained. She blinked. Ross leaned over again. It melted 3 docking pads. Liam waved a hand dismissively. Details. A distant alarm beeped once somewhere in the station, then stopped. Everyone returned to eating. Arya stared at Liam. This station is very relaxed about danger. You should have seen last winter, Liam said. Before she could ask what that meant, the cafeteria door slid open. A station technician rushed inside holding a scanner device. He looked around the room quickly. Has anyone seen a traveler matching this scan profile? The technician turned the device toward them. The screen displayed a silhouette. Long ears. Arya went still. Liam leaned forward slightly. That looks familiar. The technician continued scanning the room. His device beeped once. Arya slowly lowered her spoon. Outside the window, far beyond the fading storm clouds, dozens of massive ships slipped silently into the outer edge of the system. Their engines glowed faintly against the darkness of space, and they were heading directly toward Frost Line 7. The cafeteria grew quieter when the technician lifted the scanner again and squinted at the glowing silhouette on the screen. Strange, he muttered. The device beeped once more. Liam leaned slightly closer to Arya and whispered, If this is about unpaid parking fees, I can testify you weren't driving. Arya tried to keep her expression calm, but the corners of her mouth twitched. The technician slowly turned in a circle, scanning the room. The device flickered and then suddenly flashed bright red. Beep! Everyone in the cafeteria looked up. The technician blinked. Liam raised a hand politely. Yes? The technician pointed the scanner directly at their table. Beep, beep. Ross leaned across the table behind them. Liam, he whispered loudly. Why is the security scanner screaming at your lunch date? She's not my lunch date, Liam said. That's exactly what someone with a suspicious lunch date would say. The technician walked closer, studying Arya carefully. Ma'am, he said cautiously, station sensors detected a life sign profile matching an unidentified traveler that entered the docking perimeter during the storm. Arya sat still. Liam leaned back in his chair. Well, yeah, he said. That was her. The technician blinked again. You know this traveler? Sure, Liam replied. She's cold. She walks long distances in terrible weather, and she has excellent taste in oversized coats. Arya lowered her head slightly, hiding a smile. The technician looked down at the scanner again. The device continued glowing. This scan is unusual, he said. How unusual? Liam asked. The technician frowned. The biometric profile shows advanced biological signatures, enhanced neural activity, and the scanner beeped again, louder. Ross leaned even closer. Is she dangerous? Liam looked at Arya. Are you dangerous? She thought for a moment. Not usually. Ross slowly leaned back in his chair. That answer did not make me feel better. The technician cleared his throat. Well, the station's security system flagged the reading because it resembles a classified diplomatic profile. Liam raised an eyebrow. Diplomatic? The technician nodded slowly. Very high-level diplomatic. Arya said nothing. Liam tapped the table with one finger. Well, that sounds important. Yes. But she's eating soup. The technician hesitated. Yes. So maybe the soup is diplomatic. Ross groaned. The technician rubbed his forehead. Look, I just need to confirm her identity for the station log. Arya calmly placed the spoon down. Before she could speak, the entire cafeteria lights flickered again. Then every display screen in the room lit up at once. The emergency broadcast system activated automatically. A calm, synthetic voice echoed through the station. Attention Frost Line 7 personnel. Everyone froze. Multiple hyperspace arrivals detected in the outer system. The room erupted in confused murmurs. Ross looked toward the ceiling. Oh, great, he said. Another inspection fleet. The voice continued. Estimated vessel count, 73. The murmurs stopped. Ross slowly lowered his head onto the table. 73? Liam leaned back and stared at the screen. That's, not an inspection fleet. Arya quietly watched the display. The technician's scanner began beeping rapidly again. Beep, beep, beep. He looked down at it, then back at Arya, then back at the scanner. Oh, he whispered. Ross lifted his head. Oh, what? The technician swallowed. The main display above the cafeteria suddenly switched to an external camera feed. The workers gathered around the screen. Outside the frozen moon's atmosphere, enormous ships were emerging from hyperspace. Dozens of sleek warships formed a vast formation above the planet. Their hulls shone like silver blades under distant starlight. Liam stared. Well, he said slowly, that seems excessive. Ross squinted at the screen. Those aren't cargo ships. No, they're warships. Yep, Ross pointed upward. And they're coming here. Also, yes. The technician's scanner beeped one last time and displayed a large flashing message. Identity match confirmed. He turned the screen toward Arya. Below the glowing biometric data appeared a line of text. Virelian Imperial Registry. Royal Genetic Authority verified. Primary designation, Arya Valeris. The technician looked like someone who had accidentally stepped on a landmine. Ross leaned over and read the screen, then slowly sat down again. Liam, he whispered. Yes? Your soup friend might be important. Liam rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I'm starting to suspect that. Outside the station windows, the fleet continued descending toward Frost Line 7. Arya stood slowly from the table. Her expression had changed. The calm traveler from the storm was gone. In her place stood someone carrying quiet, unmistakable authority. Liam looked up at her. You didn't mention the 73 warships. Arya met his eyes. I did say my people would come looking for me. Liam nodded. Fair, Ross whispered again. Liam. Yes, Ross. You gave a coat to the queen of a 73-ship fleet. Liam blinked, then leaned back in his chair. Well, he sighed, I hope she remembers to return it. The cafeteria windows filled with cold silver light as the massive fleet settled into orbit above the frozen moon. Engines brighter than small suns burned against the darkness of space. Even from the ground, the shapes of the ships were enormous, their hulls smooth and deliberate like weapons carved from starlight. Inside the cafeteria, no one spoke for several seconds. Ross was the first to recover. He slowly turned his head toward Liam. Liam. Yes, Ross. You brought the queen of a galactic empire into the cafeteria. Liam rubbed his face. In my defense, he said, she looked like a traveler who needed soup. Arya stood quietly beside the table, the oversized coat still around her shoulders. Her posture had changed slightly. The calm traveler who had wandered through the storm was still there. But something else had returned as well. Something composed and powerful. The station broadcast system crackled again. Attention Frost Line 7 command staff. Incoming diplomatic fleet requesting immediate landing clearance. Ross looked toward the ceiling. Immediate? The technician with the scanner looked pale. That's not a request, he whispered. Liam leaned back in his chair and looked at Arya. So, he said casually, do they always arrive with 73 ships? Arya considered the number. It appears my escort commander was nervous. Ross stared at her. Nervous? Arya nodded calmly. Yes. Liam looked up toward the cafeteria window again. That's what nervous looks like? It is a cautious response. Ross muttered something about wanting cautious people far away from his workplace. Outside the station, the largest ship in the fleet slowly rotated above the atmosphere. Its engines glowed with controlled power as smaller escort vessels formed precise defensive formations around it. Inside the cafeteria, the technician's scanner beeped again. He quickly turned it off. I think we're past scanning now, he said nervously. Arya gently removed Liam's coat from her shoulders and folded it carefully over the back of the chair. I should go to the docking ring, she said. Liam stood up. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Ross grabbed his sleeve. Wait. Liam looked down. Ross leaned close and whispered urgently. You're not going with her. Why not? Ross gestured wildly toward the window. Because that's a fleet. Yes. And she's the queen. Yes. And you are a cargo driver who once tried to fix a navigation drone with duct tape. It worked, Liam said. Only temporarily. Arya watched the exchange with quiet amusement. Liam does not need to come, she said. Ross nodded rapidly. See? The queen agrees with me. But Arya continued. However, I would appreciate it if he did. Ross froze. Liam blinked. Why? Arya looked at him with that same curious expression she had worn since the storm. You were the first person I met after the crash. That's true. You helped me when I was simply a stranger in the snow. Also true. Her eyes held his calmly. I would like the first face I see when I return to my fleet to be the same one. Ross slowly released Liam's sleeve. Well, he said weakly, that's poetic. Liam scratched the back of his head. You know I'm probably underdressed for meeting 73 warships. Arya glanced down at his heavy work jacket and cargo boots. You look appropriate for Frost Line 7. Ross groaned. This is insane. The cafeteria doors slid open again. 2 station security officers stepped inside, looking tense. Your Majesty, one of them said carefully. The entire cafeteria froze. Ross slowly turned toward Arya. You didn't tell us she was literally the queen, he whispered. Arya gave him a small smile. You did not ask. Ross buried his face in his hands. The security officer cleared his throat again. Your fleet commander is requesting permission to dock the command ship. Arya nodded once. Granted. The officer immediately activated his comm device. Docking clearance granted to Varelian Imperial Command Ship. Outside the station windows, the largest vessel began descending slowly toward the docking ring. The ship was enormous. Its surface reflected the icy light of the frozen moon as it moved with perfect controlled grace. Ross peeked through his fingers. That ship could eat our entire station? Liam watched it carefully. Probably, he said. Arya walked toward the cafeteria door. Liam followed. Ross grabbed his arm one last time. Liam. Yes? If you become a royal advisor or something ridiculous, remember who loaned you 3 credits last month. Liam nodded. I'll repay you with royal interest. Ross sighed deeply. I regret everything. The station corridors were already filling with personnel rushing toward observation decks. Word had spread. The fleet of a galactic empire had arrived. And at the center of it all, walking calmly down the corridor beside a confused cargo driver, was the woman who had crossed a blizzard alone, wearing his coat. Arya stopped briefly near the docking window, overlooking the landing ring. The command ship approached slowly. Rows of escort fighters surrounded it like silent guardians. She looked at Liam. "You still have not asked me something." "What's that?" "Why I came looking for you again." Liam leaned against the window. "I figured you'd tell me." Arya studied his face quietly. "You helped someone without knowing who they were." He shrugged. "That happens. Not often." The docking clamps outside locked into place with a deep metallic thunder. The command ship had arrived. Arya looked toward the massive vessel, then back at Liam. "Many people show kindness because they hope it will return to them. And you did not." Liam smiled slightly. "Well," he said, "I did hope you'd return the coat." Arya laughed softly as the docking ramp of the Imperial ship slowly began to open. The docking ramp of the Imperial command ship lowered with slow, deliberate precision. A deep mechanical hum echoed across the station as magnetic locks sealed the vessel to Frostline 7's docking ring. Through the massive observation window, the ship's hull gleamed like polished silver under the frozen moonlight. Liam leaned against the railing and watched. "Well," he said quietly, "that's definitely the nicest vehicle anyone's ever come to pick someone up with." Arya stood beside him, calm and composed again, the faint glow of the docking lights reflected in her eyes. "You still think it is excessive?" she asked. "Yes." She tilted her head. "You helped a stranded traveler during a storm. The arrival of a fleet seems appropriate." Liam nodded thoughtfully. "I suppose that depends on how dramatic you want the thank you note to be." Behind them, several station workers gathered at the observation windows. Ross pushed through the crowd until he stood beside Liam. Ross stared at the ship. "That thing is bigger than Docking Ring 3. "Probably," Liam said. Ross looked at Arya. "So you're really the queen?" "Yes." Ross nodded slowly. "I knew something was suspicious when Liam voluntarily helped someone." Liam elbowed him lightly. "Don't ruin my reputation." The ramp of the command ship opened fully. A line of armored soldiers appeared, their armor sleek and luminous. They moved with perfect discipline, forming two silent rows along the walkway. Their helmets reflected the cold light of the station. At the end of the ramp, a tall officer stepped forward. He removed his helmet and bowed his head deeply. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice carried across the docking ring, "we have been searching every system in the sector." Arya walked forward calmly. "I know." The officer lifted his head and noticed Liam standing beside her. His expression shifted slightly, uncertain. Arya followed his gaze. "This is Liam," she said. The officer looked at him again. Liam lifted a hand in a casual greeting. "Hello." The officer hesitated before nodding politely. "He is the one who found me," Arya continued. A ripple of quiet understanding passed through the soldiers. Ross leaned closer to Liam and whispered, "You found the queen of a galactic empire during a snowstorm." "Technically," Liam said, "she found my truck." Arya stepped onto the ramp of the ship. For a moment she paused and turned back. The soldiers waited silently. The vast fleet above the moon held position, engines glowing like distant stars. She looked at Liam again. "Walk with me," she said. Ross nearly choked. "You're getting promoted," he whispered. Liam ignored him and followed Arya up the ramp. Inside the command ship, the interior glowed with elegant blue light. The corridors were wide and quiet, designed with a graceful precision that made the cargo station feel even rougher by comparison. Liam glanced around. "Your ship is slightly nicer than my truck." "Only slightly?" Arya asked. "Well," Liam said, "my truck has a coffee holder." Arya smiled faintly. They walked together until they reached a wide observation chamber near the front of the vessel. Through the transparent hull, the frozen moon and the station of Frostline 7 floated quietly below. Arya folded Liam's coat and handed it to him. "I promised to return this." Liam accepted it. "Thanks. It's my favorite coat." "You bought another one." "Yes," he said, "but that one isn't famous." For a moment they both looked out at the stars. Then Arya spoke again. "I meant what I said earlier." "About the coat?" "About you." She turned toward him. "I would like you to come with me." Liam looked at her carefully. "To the palace?" "To the court," she said. To help me understand the people who live beyond the great cities and the central systems. He leaned against the window. You realize I drive cargo for a living. Yes. I have no experience with diplomacy. Yes. I once tried to repair a reactor panel with duct tape. Arya nodded calmly. I am aware. Liam sighed. That story travels fast. She stepped closer. Everyone around me speaks carefully. They measure every word. And I don't. No. She studied him. You helped someone in a storm without asking who they were. He shrugged. That seemed normal. It should be, she said softly. They stood quietly for a moment. Below them, Frost Line 7 glowed faintly in the snowstorm. Liam thought about the cargo routes, the noisy cafeteria, Ross complaining about station repairs, and the endless routine of deliveries across frozen landing fields. Then he thought about the galaxy outside the window. You know, he said slowly, if I leave, someone else will have to deal with Ross. That sounds like a public service, he laughed. Arya waited patiently. Finally, Liam looked at her again. All right, he said. Yes? I'll try it. Her expression softened slightly. But, he added quickly, I'm not wearing royal robes. That is acceptable. And if the palace coffee dissolves spoons, I'm leaving immediately. I will inform the kitchen. He slipped the coat back over his shoulders. From the observation window, the frozen moon slowly began to shrink as the great command ship lifted away from Frost Line 7. In the distance, the fleet aligned into formation. Liam watched the station disappear into the storm. You know, he said. Yes? This all started because you were cold. Arya looked at him with quiet warmth. And because you stopped.